Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. We've got quite a lineup of war stuff to keep you occupied. I think it looks like this is getting more and more serious as we go through the timelines here. And please keep in mind the timeline of Israel and the end of the 70th year and going into their 71st year, and the signs in the heavens that we have been watching, all kind of coinciding with what's going on around the world. We got Larry on his mountaintop. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm just polishing my spy glasses for tomorrow to watch Venezuela.
Yeah, that does not sound good. Before we get rolling here, there's a couple things I want to bring to your attention. First of all, appreciate it, all the support we get. It's only a handful of people, but without them there would not be a Night Shadows. So I want to just extend my thanks to them. And we need help, folks. We really do, to keep this thing on the air. And you can join our Night Shadows membership site. It's $9.95 a month. You get all kinds of information. It's updated virtually every day with stuff that we think from Scripture and everything else that you really need to know. We're getting news overload, so try to weed through all of it and give only the pertinent news that is really, really important. Number two, I want to read again what Tesla had to say. If you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations. The matrix that has locked humanity up now, you don't have an escape. That is the matrix. When he's talking about energy and frequency and vibrations, that is the matrix. And the Creator created it, and he locked up humanity at the fall. Before the fall, everything was copacetic, so to speak. And after the fall, one law came into effect. It's the second law of thermodynamics, which is basically everything is vanity, entropy. Everything just wears out. Everything wears down. That's the curse. And also a veil came over the human mind. Anyway, I want to read Psalm 2 again, parts of it. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder, cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. So, of course, he's talking about Jesus Christ, how they're trying to get rid of him. So when you hear about all of this stuff, the wars, the rumors of war, all the end-time prophecy, it's all geared to Psalm 2. It's geared to get rid of Jesus Christ, God the Father, and Holy Ghost. That's all it's about. Always want to go back to baseline zero and keep your foundation in sight, because that's where everything else comes from. Okay, then the Bible tells us that we live in an upside-down, inside-out world, a matrix of lies and deceptions, sort of like Alice in Wonderland told us all about it with the Wizard of Oz. And, of course, the Wizard of Oz, guess what? That's Satan. Job tells us there is no real wisdom or understanding in the land of the living. Isn't that interesting? So if there's no real understanding and no real wisdom here, the wisdom in the Bible, like in Proverbs and whatnot, is there so that you're born into this world, you grow up in this world, you live in the world. It'll keep you out of trouble if you adhere to the biblical injunctions for morality and ethics and that sort of thing. So it's not that the Bible doesn't speak to life here, but when Jesus came here, he came to bail us out of this matrix of frequency, vibrations, and energy. That's how the whole thing is constructed. That's how it's made. In the beginning was the Word. Okay, so we're trapped in this matrix in which the Lord tells us through Job, there's no real wisdom here, no understanding in the land of the living. Well, okay, then how do we find wisdom? How do we find understanding if it's not in the land of the living? Well, Jesus told us to pick up our cross and follow him. I don't want to get into the real part of this thing, but you either do what Jesus said or you remain in the matrix, and it's a fallen matrix. That is why he said, if you hear my words and you do them, you are wise. But if you hear my words and you do not do them, you're very foolish. All of this, of course, has been redacted from modern Christianity and modern Christian theology because it's the theology of the matrix to keep you in it. That's the whole object of Satan, is to keep you in the matrix, to keep you here, not let you escape. He doesn't want anybody to escape. It's spite. It's pure meanness and spite. That's why he does it. He has a deep hatred for Jesus Christ and anybody that tries to follow him. He figures this planet is his, and he won it, he claims, fair and square at the Garden of Eden when he fooled Adam and Eve, or fooled Eve, actually, and Adam just followed. But this is where we are. All religions, all philosophies, and all systems have but one goal. That's to keep you in the matrix, to keep you dumbed down, keep you ignorant, and keep you totally occupied. That's what's going on TV right now. That's what's going on in the news right now. Jesus had a name for people who just stay in the world and all that. He called them earth dwellers. And they were the ones not interested in finding out the truth of the Matrix. And that's, if you watch the movie The Matrix, Morpheus told Neo, these people really don't want to get unplugged. They're happy here. That's all there is. An old man once said, life is hard, then you die and go to an even worse place. Well, he was absolutely correct, according to the scriptures. That's exactly what happens. Anyway, I got a prophecy, and I think, Larry, you sent this one to me, if I'm not mistaken. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will rise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind, and will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, shall empty her land. For the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. Jeremiah chapter 51. Then goes the prophecy. I tell you, my people, I come to you again to tell you of what will soon transpire. For the armies of the east will come in the dead of night, and they will come through your northern passage. They will come with their armies. They will come with their tanks. They will march through the northern wastes. Your surveillance system will not catch all of this in time. For they have been busily at work and in secret have devised a plan. For Putin and the leader of China are ready. They have planned these things in secret now for some time. When the time is ripe, I will move upon this thing. For you are held in judgment, O land. You have murdered the innocent. You have forsaken me. You have murdered and blasphemed my name. You call yourselves rich, yet you are poor and wretched. You say, but we are a righteous people. We praise you. We gather our tithes and offerings into your household of prayer. But the Lord says, I never knew many of you. For you do it for your own righteousness' sake. Swiftly will I come at that time, and surely I will save my remnant, for I will warn you ahead of time. What do you think, Larry? That's pretty deadly.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I wanted to make a comment. When you opened up with Psalm 2 and you were talking about the frequencies, etc.
Yes.
I recently had a dream, which I'm not going to really go into tonight, but because of that dream, and in that dream was information about the book of John, and, I told you I was going to look into that. Well, I actually found, I'm using my Amplified Bible to read John, and then I'm backing it up with the Aramaic rendition or Hebrew of the Hebrew Bible. They have a Aramaic section in it, and to compare it. But what's interesting, Stewart, actually the book of John literally starts off talking about the word and frequencies. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah.
Yep. The whole universe, folks, if you don't know it, is constructed on the basis of frequency. The little tiny spectrum that we see is the visible light spectrum. It's probably not 0.000.5% of the overall width of this spectrum. Technology has found a lot more, but there's obviously far more beyond that. The thing that I'm trying to point out is when the fall, which was real, brought us into a lower frequency. A veil went over the minds of all mankind. They cannot see beyond the audio and the light spectrum. They have technology so that they know the rest of it's there. The point is, you cannot break out this spectrum. And John, the Gospel of John, is really all about the gospel of love. And guess what? Love is the highest of all frequencies, and it's not even in our spectrum of where we are. We're in a fallen universe with a fallen frequency. Jesus, when he came here, told us the way out. Most people are just ignoring it. Anyway, what happened was, I believe that it was all made into a religion. But if you really go back and you examine the feast days of the Lord and all of that, you begin to figure out, as any detective would, these are clues of what was to come. And it is amazing. I'm done, I think, basically with part one of my book on frequency, where I brought in, and there are New Agers and people like David Icke out there who they've solved a good share of it. They know, and I believe the rulers of this world know, that we are in a matrix, but they want to keep you there because they're dupes of Satan, who desperately wants to keep you here. That's why it gives you, in the parable of the sower, if you read it, it's all about diversions. That's all it's about. The Chinese general wrote a book called The Art of War, and basically the primary art of war is to divert your enemy's attention. That's what Satan does. That's why he keeps you occupied with movies, TV, radio, books, etc., etc. All of it is within this matrix. And anyway, I hope people will really take note of this when I get it out, and really read it and prove it for yourself. And that's why Jesus said what he said. In the beginning was the Word. That's exactly right. And this is how it's set up. And the problem is you've got a universe where we could call it a gravity that wants to keep you here. It's a spiritual force. His name is Satan. He wants to keep you here. He doesn't want you getting out of this thing, at least not alive anyway. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to mention what was interesting, too, was, you were talking about getting in or getting out and the veil, et cetera, et cetera. I was thinking, I've got a key to my truck out there, or my wife's truck, that I can go out there and I push a button on my key, and the key emits a frequency that unlocks that truck. And the truck won't start unless I put that frequency key inside the ignition and turn it on with that key. And to me, that's interesting because CERN is completely constructed to work with frequencies, energy, and vibrations, and that's the words and terms you used in that information. So I find that telling. And another thing I wanted to mention real quick is I've been reading a really interesting set of books from Russell L. Martin. One is Scars of My Guardian Angel, and what it says is, weep not, they're just on the other side. And then the follow-up book called the Portal Series, Bloodline of the Scrolls. And what's interesting, Stewart, is both of these incredible books are written from the angle that you talk about. Everything is generated by love, or controlled or operated by love. And Stewart, to read these two books, you literally have to completely take your mind out of the box to even try to understand what he's even getting at.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the Lord. He brought a message that's so deep and so profound that the controllers here changed it immediately over to something that it wasn't, and thereby keeping everybody, Jesus gave us how to get saved, and they've completely redacted all of that. They don't want you to know what it is. And that's why you need to get out of Babylon. It's a physical nation, yes, but it's a spirit, and that spirit of Babylon is religious confusion, and people are religiously very, very confused. And you talked about love. When I met the Lord, that's the first thing He showed me was His love. It was like I was sitting in a theater almost, and the curtains part, and I'm looking into this love that has no words can absolutely describe it. You just can't. It overpowers everything. It just wipes everything out. And after he had shown me that, he said, Stewart, do you agree that love runs this universe? And I said, yes, sir. Being in the military, you say, yes, sir, to a superior officer. I didn't know what else to say. Yes, sir. Do you agree, Stewart, you have never loved? And that is the standard of all of this. This is what this is all about. The highest frequency ever is the pure love of the Lord. And, of course, Satan has twisted this all around and makes us think that Jesus is I don't know, what would you call him, Larry? Angry, unrelenting, punishing, and all that, when in reality, it's just the opposite. When I met the Lord and He was speaking to me, He was so gentle. I cannot describe the gentleness of it, nor can I describe the power, the absolute authority and power behind that voice. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible how that all goes down. That's what John's talking about. That's what the whole book of John is about. It's about the love of God. It's about finding the love of God, and that's getting out of the matrix. That's how you get out of it. Anyway, we could spend hours on that subject, I guess. But the whole thing, folks, is about control. The whole thing that's coming, 5G, the whole thing that they have done with cell phones, with smartphones, iPads. All of this is designed to get you wired into their system. They start at kindergarten getting these. In fact, there was I don't know if you saw it, Larry, but it was funny, but it was also very sad, make you cry. This little tiny kid, he must have been maybe 4 or 5 months old, and on a YouTube video, he had a little smartphone. And the mother came and took it away, and he just raised holy Cain with it. And as soon as she gave it back, he was happy. They're addicted to this. They're getting them wired into this system of total and complete control. That's what the Matrix is. And that's what this whole thing is about. We're coming up on the apex of total control. And it's just sad to watch. And now they went beyond the iPhones and the iPads and all of that. They went to stage 2, I guess you could call it that, or phase 2 would be better, wearables, where you wear it and they can track everything you do. It's amazing. And then, of course, the final step is the mark of the beast, the implants. And people are just going in for it. They love the technology. And he's got them. Satan has the human race. Well, very few escape, according to the Lord Jesus Christ. Most people don't. It's not that they can't. The Lord said, is my arm so short it can't save? Am I so weak I can't save you? On and on it goes. If God be for us, who can be against us? Promises and promises. But everybody's ignoring it. It's sad to me to watch all that. The propaganda and the TV, the movies, all of this is just propaganda to keep you amused, keep you happy. And if you're depressed, give you a happy pill. On and on it goes. They've got it wired. You got to give Satan credit. A lot of people rebuke Satan. You might remember that the angels didn't dare rebuke Satan. They said, the Lord rebuke you. People don't give Satan credit. He's the most intelligent force out there other than the Lord himself. And we really do have to give him credit. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, too, I know we got on something tonight that could go for hours, but I was going to mention also to people that don't know it, there's a Ukrainian-Russia crisis seems to be in the wind, and I sent you a movie to watch, and you've watched it. It's called Hunter Killer. It's so interesting that this could literally be Crimea, what we're talking about, coming up. But what do you think of this movie? I know a lot of people don't watch movies, but this one was rather telling on how easily World War III could begin.
Yeah, I think that's what they were warning about, actually. It's about submarines, and it's also about a rogue guy in Russia who decides to take matters into his own hands and start World War III. That's what he wants. And it's really the story of how close they came to literal war. It's kind of like, what was the name of that movie? It was done Dr. Strangelove was one of those. And we're going into war, but I personally don't think it's accidental. It may look like it is. But the controllers of the Matrix have the rich men of the earth, the Bible names them, tells you who they are, and tells you really what their plans are. All you got to do is read it and study it, and it all falls into place. They're doing exactly what was prophesied 2,500 years ago. It's amazing how accurate. Well, I shouldn't say it's amazing. It's God. He lives outside of time-space. He created it. He's not part of this universe, but he created everything that's in it. And he knows the beginning and the end. So prophecy is really not prediction as a lot of people think it is. Prophecy is history to him, and he gave it to our prophets. So if you study prophecy, you know exactly what's coming. And that's why I say who America is. I know what's going to happen to America. It's all written down, and what we're watching is exactly what was written. And I don't know about Venezuela. Hopefully we don't get involved there, but makes you wonder, doesn't it, Larry, the comment about Babylon? Surely the least of them will draw him out. And it appears to me that Trump's being drawn out to get into this war. And maybe that's what that state of national emergency was really all about. It was not about the wall. It was more about, you notice he's sending more and more troops to the border.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a backup plan.
Yeah, I saw, matter of fact, Fox has been announcing today that 1,000 or more are fixing to go to the border again, more military moving to the border. And what I had also seen on Fox this evening, which was interesting, is that they're really focusing on Venezuela tomorrow. They're going to have, this is Neil Cavuto talking, he said, we're going to watch all day. We're going to begin in the morning, and I'm talking about Saturday morning, watching video live coming out of Venezuela of the situation where Guaido, according to Fox, is going to march with about 1 million Venezuelans and try to break into Colombia to the aid, to the U.S. humanitarian aid, and they've already begun to shoot the Venezuelans that are trying to do it a day early and killing some of them. And Stewart, we're getting reports, don't know how true, but they seem to be indicating that a lot that are killing the Venezuelan people are actually Cuban soldiers that are working for Maduro. So this is really getting interesting, but tomorrow will be a telling day probably.
Yeah, and I understand that the Russians are bringing in heavy transports. You know, they have the biggest aircraft in the world. Their military transports are absolutely huge, much bigger than the United States. And they've been bringing load after load after load of nobody knows what, and mercenaries possibly coming in. And here's a headline: U.S. plans to deploy Special Forces troops and weapons close to the Venezuelan border, according to the Russian foreign ministries. A U.S. instigated large-scale provocation is expected to take place on the Venezuelan border. According to the statement, U.S. plans to deliver humanitarian aid to Venezuela, and it will lead to clashes and create a convenient pretext for military action in the country. Quote, the development of events in Venezuela has become a critical point. Everyone understands this. On 23 February, a dangerous, large-scale provocation is set to take place, instigated by the Washington-led crossing of Venezuela's border with so-called, I like the way he's worded that, so-called humanitarian convoy, which may lead to clashes between supporters and opponents, forming a convenient pretext to take military action to remove the current legitimate president from the government. We have evidence that U.S. companies and their NATO allies are working on the issue of acquiring a large batch of weapons and ammunitions in an Eastern European country for their subsequent transfer to Venezuelan opposition forces. There is also a Ukrainian truth in this brazen plan. In particular, it's going to involve the Antonov State Company as far as we understand it. So this is going to, we have to bring in the Ukraine onto this, I guess. Anyway, Hal Turner had some, and it was sent to me a couple times. You want me to read that, or you want to read that, Larry? This intelligence thing he's put out.
Yeah, you've got it in front of you. Go ahead and read it.
Said the following is covert intelligence regarding how Russia will respond to what the U.S. is doing in Venezuela and now Ukraine. Following information is from covert intel sources, but basically this is what he says. I'm going to condense it down. First, all forward positions of Ukrop forces, Ukrainian government, Kiev, and Donbass, obliterate them. In other words, just take them out. Then take the Golan Heights from Israel, destroying the Israeli air forces in the process. Here's why. Nobody would suspect it after all their buddies right now. Israel has a capable air force, but their ground force is nothing. Negate their firepower. Once Golan is captured, it will not take long for the Russian forces will be then the hero of the Islamic world, including Turkey. NATO will not fight for Israel. The Russian forces have the forces in the theater already to accomplish this. It would take forever for Israel's main ally, the United States, to mobilize and get forces over there, and they're going to keep us busy probably. This is really, I think this is part of the Armageddon script, Larry. War everywhere, like your friend in his vision saw. War everywhere.
Yeah.
So Israel breaks out, Ukraine breaks out, Venezuela breaks out. Probably then China would make a move on Taiwan and maybe obliterate our forces. And we know that Kim, according to some of the prophecies I've read, is a liar and he is a deceiver. And we got probably a problem there. Some of the rabbis even had a prophecy about that North Korea is something we really have to watch. Well, if we invade Venezuela and we run into Chinese troops and we run into Russian troops or we run into mercenaries and we start in a battle, why wouldn't North Korea hit us as a diversionary tactic? I think we're making a huge mistake here. What do you think?
Well, what's interesting, you were mentioning who we might run into in Venezuela. They've been for the last 2 days on Fox revealing information that ISIS is forces. Some of those are in groups, terror groups are in that region. Plus, Hezbollah is locked in with Maduro big time and has a lot of people over there, and they're funneling millions and millions of dollars from drugs over to fund Hezbollah in Lebanon under Nasrallah. Right. And all of this is going on. Plus, there's about 35,000, according to Intel, Cuban troops. And by the way, Stewart, if the report is true, Cuba has placed their entire military on full war alert beginning, I guess, today, approaching the 23rd, which is tomorrow. So we could run into a number of groups of forces. And by the way, when they're talking about the mercenaries, I listened to a couple of generals today, and they say the mercenaries that are being flown into Venezuela to take care of Maduro's needs are some of the same mercenaries that, if you'll remember, tried to attack near our American forces near the border of Iraq and Syria. And remember, we slaughtered about 300 of them. It's the same group. And so these are really bad guys. I mean, these are bad guys. So when you say if we go in militarily, we don't really know what we're going to run into inside Venezuela. I know, Stewart, a lot of people think Venezuela is just, kind of like maybe pieces of Mexico, but this is a whole different ball game in Venezuela because of who's there.
Yes, absolutely. And rare earth minerals are down there. There's oil, untold amounts of oil. We want to get our hands on it. We don't want the Russians to get it. Russia has invested millions, as I've said before, so hasn't China. All these communist nations are deeply involved in Venezuela, which makes me think this is the flashpoint that could start a major war. And the fact that they've already started shooting people down there, just on people that were unarmed, and bringing in aid, and they're shooting them. So, yeah, on and on it goes. Here's another headline. Breaking news. Pakistan begins war logistics as India cuts off water supply over terror attack. Trump even talked about that today, that was a really bad, dangerous situation developing between Pakistan and India. And I do remember the prophecy, and I don't remember where I saw it, but I remember it very well because it stuck out that they would start a nuclear war over there, and it would just start to expand, first in the Middle East, then it would arrive here, and then Japan, and, of course, China, being clever, which they are, they have all these underground facilities, and they've got their 200 million man army already, ready to roll. They're just going to sit back, and then when it's over, they come down to the Middle East and take all the spoils, or at least that's what they think they're going to do. And like everyone, God does not see us. He does not see what we're planning in secret, and unfortunately he does. And they're going to wish they had not forgotten. They should have factored in, let's put it that way, the God factor. If humanity would factor in the God factor, we wouldn't have the problems we have now. We'd have problems, but not anywhere near like we're coming up on. This is going to be really, really nasty. And it doesn't matter if it starts tomorrow, Sunday, or next year. But when it starts, I think it's just going to snowball. It gets out of control. Just like in that movie, that Renegade. I mean, he fired missiles and all that sort of thing. It's an interesting movie, folks. You might want to see it. A lot of people don't like submarine movies, but that was well done. Very excellent movie. And very, very fast-paced, very exciting, actually. Anyway, what do you think about this Pakistan India situation that's now developing?
Well, it's really interesting, and one of the things that really causes me to watch even closer is as I've said before, the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Salman, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS as they call him, and especially as Stan Dale calls him, MBS, is very intermingled in what's going on presently, because in the last 2 or 3 days he has went to Pakistan, visited with Pakistani leadership. He then went immediately to India and began to do some work with the Indian leadership. And now, Stewart, I have found out that Mohammed bin Salman is in China visiting with Xi. And Stewart, he is visited now. He's in China at the moment, but this makes 3 nuclear powers that MBS has visited, and I think there's more behind the plan than we even know.
He's trying to get nuclear weapons. There was some rumbles about that, remember, a month ago maybe, that started to leak out that they were looking at possibly getting their own nuclear weapons. Well, if he can buy them, and they've got unlimited amounts of money, but this might well trigger Daniel chapter 8, because if Iran gets wind, and I'm sure they know what's going on that way, if Saudi Arabia, a sworn enemy of Iran, if they picked up on the fact that they were going to get nukes, they might just decide to go anyway before they got them. It's kind of like Russia and China are looking at the United States and looking at how Trump is trying to revitalize our military. I can't see why they wouldn't strike before we're allowed to get too far on that front. And I doubt if the TR-3Bs, anti-gravity, and all of that would ever be used. That's kind of kept in the background, I believe, for world control once the New World Order comes in. And that's all deep state black projects operations that are just astounding what they can do and what they have discovered. Anti-gravity one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to drop this in here because you brought up the new missiles or you brought up Russia. There are reports that Putin actually said today indicated that those hypersonic missiles that we've been worried about, that he actually constructed outside of the agreement, if you will, the nuclear agreement. He said they're already pointed at the U.S. They're off the U.S. coast waiting, and that was kind of a threat, Stewart. Then again, let me read this article because this is rather telling. And matter of fact, I saw some images of some of the Israeli warplanes, and it says here, and then for this to come out visible, Stewart, that tells you how close we are to something happening. And then you just mentioned Daniel 8. It says Israel unveils the Raphael new advanced bunker buster missile. And if you remember, Stewart, when Trump come into office, he moved a bunch of bunker busters to Israel. And now it seems that Israel, Stewart, has constructed the bunker buster bombs that you drop into a new missile called the Raphael that is now become unveiled because they put it on some planes. It's an air-to-surface missile. It's a bunker buster. It's a monster. And it can be fired from a significant standoff range. So I'm wondering, Stewart, is it possible that, Salman and his acquiring of nukes or whatever, and Israel preparing with weapons that they know that Iran knows could destroy Iranian nuclear assets? Could that provoke them into Daniel 8?
Well, something does, because it more or less indicates, I guess you can interpret Daniel 8 any way you want to, but to me it implies a blitzkrieg, sudden, unannounced bang. They're already in motion. And it goes badly for the Saudis. It goes badly for a number of Middle Eastern nations. And if Trump is still in office at that time, we evidently decide that we've had enough of Iran and what they're doing, and we more or less, we don't take her totally out, but we trounce her real good. She's got not only a bloody nose, but basically beat up pretty bad. And it seems like it's an aerial attack. And if you go into, I believe it's Habakkuk, where it talks about how we sup up as the east wind, and we come as eagles, and we scoff at princes and kings. Well, princes and kings are Middle Eastern terminology. That's how their governments work. They're princes and they're kings. Prince Salman is a good example. He's a prince. Well, we scoff at princes and kings. Well, Iran runs basically on the same premise. So it appears that they do just decide, and this could be the trigger event. I mean, if I was an Iranian leader and I heard that one of my worst enemies was going around paying billions and billions of dollars to pick up some nuclear missiles and technology, I'd be a little upset. I might decide to take them out while they don't have it. And Iran's military is not to be sneezed at. They really do have quite a military machine over there. And of course, don't forget, folks, they need their 12th Ayman. They need their war. Just like the New World Order needs its war, because out of the ruins of the war comes the New World Order. They don't care if they kill billions of people in the process. It's like 9/11. It's a satanic sacrifice. Inside job from day one. Nobody wants to believe that. Well, I was a pilot for many, many years, and I know that was everything about that stunk from the minute I heard about it. You'd have to be an aviator to know about transponders and about how the military operates if you go off course too far, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You might recall that Gulfer had a Learjet, took off out of Atlanta, Georgia. And it only took the military about 10 minutes to find out that everybody was dead inside, so they just decided to let it fly until it ran out of fuel and crash into a field. But they were there almost immediately. Well, there was a stand-down order so that the military did not interfere with 9/11. And I can understand why people don't want to believe any of that. It's hard to believe that your own government would perpetrate such a horrendous, horrific situation. They don't care. You have to understand something about these people. They don't have a conscience. What they have is an agenda. And it doesn't matter how many people die in the agenda. They could care less. In fact, the more you suffer, the more pain you have, the better they like it. These are Satanists. A lot of them don't even believe in Satan. They're still Satanists in their spirit. That's how they love this stuff. Mayhem. It's like that ad on TV. Which insurance company is that, Larry? It does the Mayhem guy?
Yeah, I forget which one that is, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, they love mayhem. That's what they want. And I think this is what we're watching. We're watching the beginning of the world global chaos that leads to the New World Order. Once this thing ignites, look out. And that's why Larry and I have been warning people for I don't know how many years. Prepare yourselves. Because once this thing starts, everybody's going to be in trouble. I got a headline here. I want your opinion on it. Trainloads of U.S. military vehicles seen in Slovakia. Is this tied to war with Russia? It sounds like it to me.
Well, if you'll remember, Stewart, and I saw that article too. I saw actually the video or the picture of what's on those trains. If you'll remember, a short time back, they were bringing in clandestinely or hidden armor and tanks into Ukraine, sneaking them into Ukraine to be used down around Donbass, that region of an invasion there that Ukraine was wanting to do against Russia in that region. And I would have to assume, Stewart, that this is going through Slovakia. It means it's coming through the same way to get into Ukraine, probably to support armor and stuff to support the Ukrainian army as this thing comes down. And what we haven't told people, I can't vet it, and I'd like your opinion. I cannot vet it though. We know there was an earlier plan that got leaked, and it got real quiet after that first Kerch Strait situation between Ukraine and Russia. In that one, Russia took out and captured some of the ships. However, we got, if it's true, there's information, and I dug the best I could from the port of Odessa, a report of armored military naval vessels that belong to the Ukraine and airborne weapons that are moving now towards the Kerch Strait, and at the same time that we've got a U.S. destroyer leading some NATO ships approaching that same region in the Black Sea there. And so this seems to be coming together around Crimea. And so I would think that maybe those train loads of stuff coming in may be for Ukrainian military.
Yeah, that's interesting. And part of this article says, what's the destination? Ukraine, Slovakia, Poland, preps for what? War with Russia? Too much military stuff happening today on too many fronts. Looks like the New World Order folks are going for broke. They want to start World War III. They want numerous countries destroyed. They want millions of people dead. So also they can come in and say, see, Nation and states cannot be trusted to keep the peace. You have to turn your sovereignty over to our new world government. That's exactly what all this is about. And the people of the world are going to go for it because they are in the world. They are earth dwellers. They rejected the Bible. They rejected Jesus Christ. And you can be a Christian and still reject what Jesus told you, what he commanded you, what he ordered you to do. Well, that's lordship salvation. And on and on and on they go. Well, Jesus worded it this way. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I tell you? That's a good question. It'd be like a general ordering a private around, and the private says, what? Who do you think you are? You know, that wouldn't go over too good. He'd be in the brig in 2 seconds. And that's basically where we're at. And yes, they do. They want World War III because out of the ashes of it comes their new world order. Here's that headline you were talking about. Breaking news, Ukraine naval vessels headed for Kerch Strait. This is a provocation. And this is what makes me think they're going to start this everywhere, just like the Armageddon script said they would. And that was released a long time ago. That was the plan. And of course, there's many, many elements to the plan. But the war, the American people aren't ready for any of this. And Putin, here's another headline. Putin warns the United States once again, ready for another Cuban Missile Crisis? Well, bring it on. Basically, is what he said. You're going to get what you want. Here's the one that on Steve Quayle's Q alerts. Many different areas in the world seem to have been kicked into war mode at the flip of the globalist switch. Keep your eyes on the escalation between Pakistan and India, as well as Russia versus the Ukraine. Backroom talk of Cuba being put on war footing. President Putin's anger is off the charts, and the West is about to initiate a series of events that will escalate rapidly. Use tomorrow to top off all your preps just in case. Run through your list tonight. Good time to run through your checklist. And Christians pray and intercede with your whole heart. Very dangerous times are coming. That unstoppable train that you were talking about on the last show we did, the prophecy about the unstoppable train. That's where we are. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're certainly getting there. You and I have really been telling people to prepare. And also, I always want to bring up again, we need to also prepare to have some type of availability of some type of communication, whether it's shortwave or ham or whatever. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of money, but you need some way to at least listen to reports of what's going on around the world and receive news. And with the mainstream media that America currently has, Stewart, it's absolutely a shambles. When you turn on mainstream media today, about all you get is anti-Trump and a social gospel, who's who in Hollywood. It's insane. There's nothing there. There's nothing. It's like going into a store and they're all toys. There's nothing to buy that's really real.
Yeah. Well, that's that propaganda arm and dumbing down the American people, and they've done an excellent job. The American people basically are dumbed down, and they don't even ask questions. You are a detective. How do you find out facts? You start asking questions. You start investigating things, and then you connect the dots. It's very, very simple, but most people just won't do it. And, of course, the diversions, that's what the parable of the sower is all about. And it's about diversions, the things that stop you from getting out of the matrix. So what we're watching here is we're coming up on war, and the vast majority of people obviously are still deep within the matrix before we close. Major earthquakes. Down at, what war is that, a 7.7? down there in South America?
Well, that originally was reported, Stewart, overseas as a 7.7, but it was posted by the UN group and USGS and EMSC as a 7.5 magnitude major quake that hit Ecuador. This was on the Ecuador-Peru border. I've got 2 emails from people in Ecuador, Stewart, and one claimed that it rocked. I mean, it absolutely rocked, and the other one said it went on and on and on and on, and they're not through. They had another one, this was on the border, but they had another one just offshore of Guayaquil, Ecuador, 5.8, almost a 6, and this is one where Augusto Perez had that spiritual experience of a massive tsunami that hit that region. And so we've got to watch that. But however, I got an email, and I'd like your comment here. I got a email today from an individual that's a sensitive. As a matter of fact, he's the one that said war. He had the experience. He saw war everywhere. But listen, he emailed me today and said the last few days he's had 3 dreams just alike in a row, and he's a sensitive, by the way. He dreamed 3 times that he was standing by some freeways in California and everything was underwater.
Wow. Well, that's probably an earthquake activity here. Alaska earthquake today, 6. Hit Alaska within minutes. They weren't super big at all. Anchorage braces for a huge tremor. So that Pacific plate and the North American plate are breaking up. Now, I remember that Sorcha Fall and some Russian scientists 2, 3, 4 years ago said to watch out for the plates, particularly the North American plate, that it was going to start to break up. And here we are.
Stewart? I was just going to comment real quick. Stewart, I did post, and I think I sent you a copy of a earthquake alert warning video from Dutch Sense that he did today after the 7.5 earthquake hit Ecuador, and he says that quake cracked or broke the plate that runs down through that region that goes all the way up to Alaska, basically, and he said he's warning people. He said this all ain't over.
Yeah, I think actually it's just begun, and we're just in trouble, folks. You know, humanity has basically more or less given the Lord the finger, and you can't do that. Pure and simple, you can't do that. You're going to get in trouble for it. Anything else, Larry, before we quit tonight?
I would just tell people to, hey, this weekend, keep your seatbelt buckled and hope for the best and pray, you know, that maybe we'll have a little more time before all this breaks loose. But we sure seem to be on the cusp of something, Stewart.
Yeah, there's no question. The timeline is running out for Israel's 70th year. The Sanhedrin is rising. The NORAD laws are rising. We've had plasma discharge events. We've got the destroyer inbound. We've got a lot. The sun is acting very strange. All of these things and the earthquakes and everything else are accelerating. And the Russians photographed a bunch of explosions in the atmosphere. There was no clouds or anything else. That's probably plasma discharges. We have to get into that one of these days. And oh, by the way, vaccines. I want to get into that too again, but we don't have time tonight. Beware of those. Be very aware of those. Something's going on. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and thank you, Larry, for coming on. And we'll see everybody, let's see, tonight's Friday. Well, if anything breaks, we'll have an emergency update anyway. Otherwise, we'll see you when we can get on again, probably Monday or Wednesday. Anyway, thank you. Good night, everyone.